So today, as he said, we're going to talk about stress. So William Shakespeare quoted Hamlet as saying, "To be or not to be, that is the question." Hamlet's father had just died, and he was questioning life and death, to be or not to be, to live or to die. Now, if you were to substitute the word be with the word stress, to stress or not to stress, you essentially have the same meaning, because to be is to live, and to live is to stress. To exemplify this, let's take a look at how human life is formed. Okay. Now, even before conception, the sperm makes a very difficult and stressful journey toward the egg. It endures an extremely harsh environment, not to mention competition with millions of other sperm. And if it doesn't get destroyed on the way to the egg, the moment of conception is equally as stressful as the two pieces of genetic code joined to become one, creating new human life. Now, at this point, the cell begins to divide, and this process takes a lot of energy, and energy is stress. Now, you, as a fully developed human being, undergo this stress every moment of every day as your cells regenerate. New ones are dying off, and old ones are being formed. So you're always under stress. So as you can see, stress is essential to human life, and without it, well, there would be death. Stress is useful in many other ways as well. Exercise, for example, it creates a lot of stress on the body, but it also strengthens you. The simple act of waking in the morning signals for a little release of adrenaline so that you can get out of bed. Very important, very useful. But let's take a look at what happens in a more extreme environment. Let's say as you're all sitting here today, all of a sudden the building starts to shake. It starts to crumble around you. You can feel this rush of adrenaline throughout your body. You start breathing heavily, sending oxygen to your brain, making you more alert. Your body has just initiated its stress response. You may know this as fight or flight. Your brain sends a signal to your adrenal glands, which sit back here on top of your kidneys, to release epinephrine, which is your adrenaline that helps you fight or flee. Now, your innate reaction is probably going to be to run for cover, but before you do, you look up and you notice Godzilla roaring fiercely. Now what do? You see, the problem with your stress response is that although you become more alert, the cognitive part of your brain is essentially shut down, so you don't think very clearly. So some of you are going to sit there completely frozen and unable to take action. Some will run, and a few of you are going to stay behind and fight as if you could actually defeat Godzilla. Remember, you're not thinking very clearly here. Now, once the danger has dissipated, your body releases another chemical that allows you to calm your nervous system down. But if the danger persists, as in Godzilla is now running after you, you're going to get a release of cortisol. And cortisol is kind of like the gas pedal on your car. It allows for the continued release of fuel. That is, until the gas runs out. So let's translate this scenario to real life. You get up in the morning and you realize you've overslept. Now you're rushing around trying to make up for lost time. You don't have time for breakfast. You can't find your keys. There's a massive jam on the way to work. You finally get to work and your boss gives you an urgent assignment and you're rushing around to do that. Then you get a call from your child's school saying you need to pick them up because they're sick. Now you're rushing to do that, and then you get home and you realize you didn't pick up dinner. How many of you have had a day like that? A few of you? How many of you feel like that's kind of your life every day? Okay, a couple of you. All right. Well, as I said, stress is important. It's essential for human life, but too much stress, excess stress, can be problematic, especially if this is like your day every single day. So I'm sure you're aware of some of the effects of negative stress, but I'd like to identify a few of them. One is that when you have persistent surges of adrenaline, that epinephrine that I talked about, it can damage your arteries and make you at greater risk for heart disease and stroke. Excess cortisol can cause a buildup of fatty tissue, especially around the midsection. And fat tends to harbor toxins, and is a contributor for heart disease and diabetes. But what I find most interesting is that excess stress can actually alter your brain. Now, not only does it interfere with memory function, but it also depletes your serotonin and your dopamine, which are the hormones that help you feel happy and connected. It causes a loss in synaptic nerve connections in your brain and shrinks your prefrontal cortex, which is the area of the brain that's responsible for concentration, decision making, and social interaction. A research study that was done by the University of Copenhagen found that excess stress can cause an actual gene expression change. So the way that your genes behave, and it can cause depression, anxiety, and even bipolar disorder. This is often what happens with people who have post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. So if you're constantly under stress, you're not going to be as happy and healthy as you probably would like to be, and you're not going to be as productive. It may feel like you're more productive because you're running around, but this is just an illusion. Now, we can't control the fact that stress exists, but we can control how we respond to stressful situations. And we can also apply prevention techniques. For example, with the case of oversleeping, you might have a couple of alarm clocks that wake you up in the morning. You might prepare your breakfast the night before so that you don't have to do it in the morning. Have some leftovers on hand in the freezer for emergencies. Maybe you map out a couple of different ways to get to the office or school. These are just some prevention techniques. Now, in the case of Godzilla, you probably wouldn't see that one coming, so difficult to prevent something like that. But we have emergencies like earthquake, fire, and we have drills for that, right? They allow us to practice what would happen in an actual emergency. Even in the case of oversleeping, you could practice something like that. The problem is, most of the time when some major emergency happens, people tend to panic. Even in the case of oversleeping, you just panic. And panic doesn't solve the problem. In fact, it probably is going to make it worse. So I'd like to provide you with some techniques that you can use to immediately calm your nervous system, allow you to think more clearly so that you can respond in a more productive manner. The first of which is to breathe. Now, this may sound a little bit rudimentary because we all breathe, but if you just focus on your breath, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, try this once with me. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. It immediately calms your central nervous system and allows you to focus a little bit more so that you can go to the second one, which is to say to yourself, I am in control of my mind and body. And we're all programmed to respond to instruction, so this simple instruction, just remind yourself that you are in control. Then you can go to step 3, which is to ask yourself this question. What do I need to do first in this situation? This just allows you to move a little bit further away from panic and into a more productive thought process. Once you've identified the action or what you need to do first, take action, and you just repeat this process. Now, I realize this might be a little bit difficult in a situation where you're being chased by a monster, but in day-to-day life, this can be hugely advantageous. This can take you from a very stressful life to a very peaceful life. And the situation of oversleeping, you could have put yourself into unnecessary mode of panic, thinking of all the things that your boss was going to do. He's going to be angry, and you're going to get fired, and then you're not going to have money to pay the rent, and then you're going to get kicked out. It's crazy, all the things we invent in our mind that are probably not going to even happen. But what if instead, when you realized you overslept, you took a deep breath, said, I am in control of my mind and body. You thought of what you needed to do and took decisive action without all the fuss. You may have found your keys more easily, remembered to grab a breakfast bar on the way to work, got your boss's assignment done more quickly and efficiently, maybe even found a better route to work to get on the way to work in the morning. You would have remembered to get dinner on the way home, all because you had a more clear and focused mind. Now, the Kung Fu master becomes one by balancing his inner energy. We call this qi. It helps him to be more calm and focused and able to take decisive action. The novice, however, is unfocused and unbalanced and not able to take decisive action. He exerts a lot of energy and thus tires and is easily defeated. But the Kung Fu master uses very little energy while still achieving optimal results. So when you master your stress, you're like the Kung Fu master in that you're able to do more with less effort, making you more productive while still being calm, happy, healthy, and balanced. So what would the Kung Fu master do when faced with Godzilla? I'll leave that to your imagination. Thank you.